So, after Trailblaze Mission in 3.5, the consensus is that Cerydra is a tyrant and she is selfish. Well, I'm here to tell you that while she is a tyrant, she is not selfish. Cerydra is not selfish, she is just doing what must be done in order to deceive Lygus. I know so, because her character story told me, so did the records of the Scepter's extrapolation, as well as the striking resemblance she has to Lygus, which ultimately differentiates the two. But before we get to that, disclaimer. When I said subjective, I really meant objective, but seeing as some of us are quick to judge a character and pass that judgment as the absolute truth of that character, a neutral analysis like this has in turn been pushed to the area of subjectivity. If there is anything subjective here, it is me pulling for Cerydra despite not having the team she was meant to be part of. Yes, I did lose my 50-50. Yes, I did continue pulling anyway. Now that's me being biased, pulling for the sake of pulling because I like the character. And I have no worries in that regard because LD Shop got me covered. If you've never heard of them, LD Shop is a top-up service where you can make in-game purchases at a discount. You can get a monthly supply pass, honorific shards, or even get a guarantee bundle so that you know that you will have enough tickets to get your favorite characters and light cones. The top-up process is super simple. To make a purchase, all you need to provide is your game server and your ID. Then your top-up will be sent to you within minutes. LD Shop has been used by thousands of people and you can just look at the reviews to see how safe and reliable the service is. What's more, if you still have your double top-up bonus from the anniversary reset, it also works with purchases via LD Shop. So why not top up there and get your bonus for cheaper? Better still, after spending over $80 in a month, you can claim a free supply pass. So, if you're a spending player and looking to bring the Imperator home, you can use my link in the description below to make your first purchase to get 15% and 5% off coupons and save up to $50. Thank you LD Shop for sponsoring this video. Now back to the analysis. The claim that Cerydra is selfish comes from Lygus' retelling of what happened when she led her army to the so-called battle against Fagusa. 500 people she led down to Styxia in the pretense to subdue the Ocean Titan when in truth, Cerydra had always meant to let them die there, their golden blood spilled as sacrifice so that she could pass the trial of law.
The one who wishes to bear law must purge this world of its curse and offer the blood of the accursed as sacrifice,
Talenton told her in her initial failed trial, and eventually Cerydra figured by purging the curse of the world, it meant she must sacrifice those with golden blood, for they were the force of destruction in the world. So that's where the notion is coming from. Instead of laying the price bare to her followers, giving them a choice to back out, Cerydra quietly led them to their death. So the conclusion is that she is selfish. Which is funny because the last time I checked, Caslana had forgone trying to not kill his fellow Chrysos heirs for their core flames starting in the early 100 ERs, amounting to the death of more than 400 million Chrysos heirs. And that's not even counting the cities he burned down to trigger some of the Chrysos heirs' journey. Case in point, Cypher's hometown and the library at Custom Kremnos, and yet he is the hero of the world because he did all of that to shackle Iron Tomb in Amphorius. And now Cerydra did the same thing, all part of the same effort to imprison Iron Tomb, and she is selfish for that. Is it a lack of remorse that she displayed in front of High Silence while admitting to this crime? I disagree. As the geniuses said, the Scepter had something called the Ultimate Protocol. Think super admin privilege in a computer. And while Lygus claimed himself to be the admin of the simulation, even he could not meddle with this level of privilege. So far, this Ultimate Protocol had prevented him from interfering with the simulation, i.e. he could not kill the Chrysos heirs and vice versa. This is why he could only watch from the sideline while Caslana trapped Amphorius in a 33 million cycles of death loop. This Ultimate Protocol exists within the simulation as Talenton the Law Titan. Anyone who bears the law bears the Ultimate Protocol of Amphorius. Knowing this, Trailblazer raced against Lygus to get Cerydra to side with them. While Cerydra had entertained Lygus and observed Trailblazer from afar, she had never intended to give up the law to either of them. They were essentially outsiders to Amphorius. The last thing she wanted was for an outsider to control the fate of the world. She alone must bear the law. Those 500 people were a necessary sacrifice so that Lygus could never get his hand on the law's core flame. Of course, an argument could be made that she should have told her followers of the plan instead of quietly leading them to their death. However, Realistically speaking, between Cerydra being honest to her followers, letting them back out, finding new willing sacrifices until she managed to get 500 of them, between all of that, and Lygus figuring out a way to steal the core flame from her, which one do you think would have happened first? In a game of chess, won't you just lose if you run out of time? This is a game of chess against the god. I suppose we can consider Lygus as one considering his role in the simulation, and Cerydra has no intention of losing, so she brought her followers to their death, all part of a necessary sacrifice to ensure that Lygus could never meddle with the law of Amphorius, all part of her plan to overturn the law of the world. This course of action that she took reminded me of Farina from Genshin Impact. If you've watched some of my early Amphorius prediction videos, you'd know that even before her design was revealed, I've always likened Cerydra to Farina and thus predicted that she would be the Chrysos heir of law. At first it was a similarity drawn because her silhouette reminded me of Zilla from Honkai Impact. Long before the release of Fontaine and Genshin, the region of which Farina was the Archon of, Zilla was said to be the inspiration for the Hydro Archon. The Hydro Archon's domain is justice. So justice, law, hence the Chrysos heir of law. Plus there's that crown on top of her head that reminded me of Farina's crown-looking hat and the blue color scheme. And then Cerydra was revealed in her drip marketing and the similarity was too much to overlook. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about Cerydra being a variant of Farina, that is a different thing. That would be like saying Kaslana is a variant of Kevin Kaslana, Cyrene of Elysia, Akron of Raiden May, etc. You know, one same person existing across different branches of the imaginary tree. When I say Cerydra's resemblance to Farina is too much to ignore, I'm talking about Farina as an archetype. And what is that archetype? Farina was the human side of an Archon. She was tasked to pretend to be said Archon by her divinity Fussolors. This was one half of a plan that Fussolors put together to overturn the Heavenly Principles law that had bound her nation for 500 years. This plan, of course, came with a price, the life of an Archon. To save her people, Fussolors must die. Her sacrifice then allowed a higher level privilege, so to speak, to be used to override the Heavenly Principles law and free the people of Fontaine. So that's the Farina/Fussolors archetype, and I see this in Cerydra. Did you know that there was actually no Cerydra? Cerydra was not Cerydra's real name. She was named Cerydra and proclaimed to be a lost princess of the Hyperborean kingdom so that some greedy aristocrat could rule as king regent in her stead. Cerydra came from the northern empire of Amphorius, a lost dynasty of frozen lands with a sovereign who died without an heir. Cerydra, who had quite the unusual blue hair, stood out against the snowy land, and her golden blood made her even more special. An aristocrat basically kidnapped her and began spreading rumors of a lost princess, as he believed that only the royal family blessed by Talenton could possess such flame-like blue hair. From this day forward, you are Princess Cerydra. If she showed even the slightest hint of doubt about it, questioning that statement, she would be rewarded with a slap across her face. This was when Cerydra started to conceal her emotion. Just like Farina, who had to pretend to be an Archon despite not having any power whatsoever, and had to hide her worry behind her extravagant facade, Cerydra had to act the part of a princess and swallow her emotion too, each serving a different purpose, both growing more into their roles. Farina grew more extravagant, resembling more of a mascot than an Archon revered by the people, while Cerydra gradually promoted herself from an expendable pawn to a king piece. She eventually overthrew her kidnapper, the king regent who had ruled in her stead, and sentenced him to die before she set out for the flame-chase journey. However, she did not necessarily set out to save the world. Cerydra simply thought that overthrowing gods who saw themselves as rulers of the world was a game worth playing, which eventually led us to the crossroad where Cerydra and Hysilence were. While Fussolors had always known that she must die for her plan to be successful, that it was the only way she could return the divine authority of Hydro to its rightful owner, Neuvillette, thus allowing him to overrule the Heavenly Principle's sentence and save the people of Fontaine, Cerydra did not know that her newly acquired divinity required more death to be utilized.
One rule change for the life of one demigod.
Hysilence, who had seen it through till the end, was furious at this. "Haven't you done enough?" she basically asked, too upset to see that Cerydra only wanted to offer up just one last Chrysos heir, just one rule that she needed to change. If she's lucky, she could get Hysilence to kill her. If not, and Hysilence chose to sacrifice herself instead, well, there was nowhere else she would rather be than by the side of Hysilence's dead body now, was there? But Cerydra was a chess master. She didn't count on luck. As her teacher once said, chess is the art of sacrifice. Your hands must accept death before touching the board. Before the party departed to Styxia, she knew that she would meet her end there. That was why, prior to that journey, she had specifically made Aglaia and Tribi stay back.
This will be a long voyage with no return. Those of you who bear the prophecy cannot come with me.
This was a journey with no return, and she needed them to stay alive to continue the Flame Chest journey. It's not just the 500 people that she brought with her that would not return to Akima. She herself would also disappear beneath the wave. That lack of remorse that she showed Hysilence while admitting to leading her followers to their death, it was part of her plan. She needed to get Hysilence to hate her, so when the opportunity was offered to her, the sweet opportunity to avenge her fallen friends, Hysilence would not hesitate to take it, would not regret piercing her sword through Cerydra's chest. Cerydra was a chess master. She didn't count on luck. She had it all planned out, including her own death. And she did all of that to lend her aid for the final battle against Lygus. What Cerydra traded her life with was this: a temporary super admin access granted to Herda and Scrulum. Simultaneously, she also made the Chrysos heirs turn against Lygus. See, in the updated version of the Scepter's extrapolation report, it is said that after she passed the trial of law and became the demigod of law, Cerydra basically had the highest level access to Amphorius, and the first thing she did? Marking Lygus as a malicious visitor to Amphorius and freezing around 60% of his admin access. While the Scepter initially recognized Lygus for his society ID and let him inside in peace, Cerydra's authority changed that. Now marked as a malicious visitor, the electrical signal inside the simulation turned hostile towards him. This translated to Chrysos heirs throwing punches at Lygus. While Cerydra and Hysilence knew he could not be trusted because they had seen his true nature at the banquet, the rest of the Chrysos heirs were not there. Like, half of them were not even born yet. This was the necessary step to future-proof them from Lygus's lies. Aglaia studied it, futile as it might be, leading to her death in light calendar 4029 alongside 90,000 people in Akima. Castris was with Aglaia then and was only alive because Aglaia insisted on her leaving. Eventually, she ascended to demigod of death and stayed in the Netherrealm. We've seen this happen in the previous ER. Tribios drained most of their divinity to open a passage that connected Styxia and the Vortex of Genesis. Eventually, they perished in light calendar 4295. Mighty went through the soul-splitting ceremony like Nias and Nicator did, sealing his fate as a weapon that protected Amphorius from Lygus for the next 200 years. Only after regaining his full permission could Lygus forcefully end Mighty's life. Cypher lured Lygus to the Vortex of Genesis, tricking him into believing that it was Trailblazer that had finally returned to Amphorius. It didn't take long for Lygus to figure it out, and soon he shut her down. But Cypher had expected as much, and it was only half of the plan. The other half of the plan rested with Anaxa, who had transmuted himself into a philosopher's stone that needed to be shattered and scattered into the ocean within the Vortex of Genesis to immobilize Lygus. The one who needed to do that was Hysilence, who had stayed by the Imperator's grave since her death. And there she waited for Trailblazer, who would return to defeat Lygus and initiate Era Nova. Hyacinth, the youngest of them all, held back as long as she could to protect the people before she had to eventually merge with the sky. Unlike its original design, this Era Nova would not free Iron Tomb from Amphorius, thanks to Cerydra's sacrifice and her making the Chrysos heirs turn on Lygus, which kept him busy for a while. Herda and Scrulum managed to rewrite a little bit of the Scepter's underlying code. Instead of getting to 100%, by initiating Era Nova after the rewrite, the extrapolation progress would go down to 96.75%. 97% to be conservative, Herda said, and all of that was achievable because Cerydra brought those 500 people with her to die in Styxia, ensuring that the ultimate protocol of Amphorius would rest in her hand only. All of that was achievable because when the simulation demanded it, the heartless Imperator did not hesitate to sacrifice even herself to overturn the law of the world. Now, do you still think Cerydra is selfish? I think she is far from it.
how do you want history to remember you? As a hero who gave up her life for the flame chase? Or as a tyrant? She answered so quickly, as if she had made up her mind long ago.
I would rather be forgotten than be defined.
After putting Trailblazer in a timeout, Lygus turned to Cerydra, whose attempt to stop Lygus had shown that she didn't want to team up with him. As she had seen herself, Lygus could make somebody disappear with a clap of his hands. What power did Cerydra have as a mere mortal against him, practically a god in the simulation? To which Cerydra said,
We are both slaves to hubris, but do you know what differentiates us, Lygus? I will never be blinded by my pride.
Hubris 504 is the name given to the data entity that represents Cerydra in the simulation. In the ancient Greek concept, hubris represents excessive pride and an inflated sense of self-worth, which often leads individuals to believe that they are equal to the gods. While it sounds almost fitting to Cerydra, especially the part about being the gods as equal, the entirety of it is more fitting to Lygus. I mean, yes, Cerydra did join the Crisis Heirs in the beginning because she found it interesting to challenge the gods. The gods thought they were rulers of the world, but Cerydra was also a ruler who had conquered city-state after city-state. In her eyes, the gods were simply some rulers she could someday conquer. But excessive pride, an inflated sense of self-worth, that is just not Cerydra.
My conquest has reached its limits within the borders of Amphorius. Since the prophecy already decreed that the Imperator would never conquer the stars as she wished, I will bow out here and try no more.
The prophecy had decreed that she would never conquer the stars, and instead of pushing her way through, insisting to go against her fate, Cerydra simply accepted it, doing the best she could do to aid the Flame's journey by sacrificing herself and entrusting the rest of the journey for Aglaya to lead. I would go as far as to say that Cerydra actually cared a whole lot more than she was willing to admit. Once a child threw a rock at her crown and hid it. While the law punished anyone who assaulted the crown, Cerydra chose to abolish that law instead of punishing the child. During her conquest to the grove, she specifically instructed her soldiers to not destroy any books. It's a small detail, but an important one, and goes to show much of her character. It is the one who ban and destroy books that we need to look out for. Like, seriously, in real life, those are the ones that we need to look out for. She built libraries in Akima, granting access to knowledge of the Flame's journey to everyone. She made the Flame's journey into law, which up until that point was something frowned upon by the people. Killing the gods they had been worshipping their whole life? The Holy Maiden of Unisopolis must be crazy. Yet Cerydra listened to her, ended a century-long war that had claimed the lives of many Crisis Heirs alike and amplified Trebios' call. She forbade Aglaya and Trebios from joining her in a battle against Fagusa because unless it was really necessary, she would not sacrifice anyone. She took great care of ensuring Hycilus' comfort by her side. She threw a feast after every victorious battle. She built her a custom swimming palace. She kept her company. She found Hycilus books that had no drawing of cats inside because Hycilus didn't like them. While her conquest beyond Amphorius would never come true, she made sure that her promise to Hycilus of an oceanic planet would be fulfilled. She did that, and yet insisted that she didn't care if Hycilus ended up never visiting the memory of that planet.
Will you choose to swim into that ocean? I do not care. Do not care.
She didn't care, she told Hycilus, because she truly did. But she wanted Hycilus to continue to believe in the facade of a heartless tyrant she had been wearing. Lygus, on the other hand, embodies this concept completely. Destroying Nous is his most noble work. It is his burden to bear to break the shackles that Nous has put on them. His entire personality, in fact, revolves around this noble work and his identity as the first prisoner to awaken in the cave. He has seen everything, and now he must lead everyone else who are still blind back onto the right path to reach true sunlight. Inflated sense of self-worth? Check. When Herda and Skrullum tried to make him realize how destructive his solution would be, he just scoffed at it, so certain in his logic that the two geniuses stood no chance against him. Amphorius was a world that shared its origin with Nous, and he was the creator of Nous. How could they possibly beat him? Excessive pride? Also check. Ironically, in his journey to defy Nous, to break free from this predetermined universe he has been confined to, Lygus has become a miniature of Nous himself. Whenever a Crisis Heir attempts to defy him, his go-to reply is, "This is a futile attempt. Iron Tomb is destined to break free from Amphorius." He has confined his Crisis Heirs in a world whose ending has been determined from the moment of its inception. Amphorius is a miniature of the cosmos, and Lygus is playing a miniature of Nous in it. I think he really is just jealous that his creation is the one that ascended to Eonhood instead of himself. While Cerydra was designed to exhibit the concept of hubris, just as the other Crisis Heirs who deviate from their designated path, so has Cerydra. She does think the gods can be overthrown, but unlike Lygus, she trusts in her fellow Crisis Heirs and does not think that her role is more important than the others. And most importantly, Cerydra is not selfish. She is just doing what must be done in order to outsmart a genius. This video would have never seen the light of day without my chat suggesting it during my playthrough of the quest. I remember someone suggesting that I should make a video about Cerydra because she was controversial. And I was like, is she? To me, her actions were clear as day, and honestly, it was fascinating to see how differently others reacted to her actions. So shout out to my chat and shout out to you for sticking around until the end. I will see you in the next one.